Well, hey everybody, John Ritland here, and this is every Bret Hart WrestleMania match ranked from worst to best. My favorite wrestler of all time. I know he's divisive among some people, but I stand by what I say because it's my personal opinion. But that being said, he's had a host of really good WrestleMania matches when he was at the show of shows from WrestleMania 2 all the way to WrestleMania 13. And don't worry, we're going to talk about his last WrestleMania match that was a number of years ago. Don't worry, we will. But he also had some ones that didn't go all that well. And when you've had multiple WrestleMania matches, like over 10 especially, like a lot of guys for the lists I've done, of various wrestlers, John Cena, Hulk Hogan, Shawn Michaels, and the like, you're going to get some clunkers. And that's what we're going to discuss here. So here we go. Let's just get the one out of the way. Out of the 14 matches that Bret Hart had at WrestleMania, Bret versus Vince at Mania 26. You really wanted to watch, two old guys beat the shit out of each other and two old guys slug around the ring when Bret Hart couldn't take any bumps. One, the effects of the stroke, age, and other ailments, but also he had a Lloyd's of London insurance policy that dictated he couldn't take any bumps. So basically, it was like light impact duty. And if you thought his matches in WCW in 2000 were bad, the few that he had, oh boy, 10 years later, the setup for all this of like Vince paying off the Hart family to screw over Bret, and then Bret like, no, I paid them double, or oh, family bond, family blood is stronger than money, and this kind of whatever. It was so bad. It was great to see Bret get his revenge on Vince, but this went on forever. He hit him with a chair about 80,000 times. It was great to see Bret win, don't get me wrong, but this was a black eye on a not very, on a pretty underrated WrestleMania, but a match that really should have been half the length that it was. Bret doing this, it was great to see Bret get his revenge on Vince, but boy, was it a slog to get there. So yeah, his worst WrestleMania match ever, easily. Not that I expected much out of it, but still, it went on way too long. Now we go to number 13, Bret versus Yokozuna at Mania 9. I've covered it before, so briefly, they should have either gone with Bret retaining and not involved Hogan, or they should have had Yoko win, and then Yoko just closed the show as champion. Basically, they should have not had Hogan involved at all. But it was what it was. It was kind of limp. The match got cut short for time due to Yoko being tired, so them going to the finish early, but also pay-per-view time because, the show must have been running long or something. The whole point is Yoko won and all this, and then Hogan closed the show as champion. Great job there. Not a very good match. And then we get to number 12, Bret versus Bob Backlund at Mania 11 with Roddy Piper as a special guest referee in an I Quit match. Roddy constantly, and late great Roddy Piper, I got nothing but respect for him. But him being a referee and having the microphone and yelling, right when somebody gets somebody on the ground, like Bret gets Backlund an armbar, or Backlund gets Bret in a sleeper hold or something like that. Roddy's right there. What do you say? What do you say? What do you say? Doing all that. And I love Roddy. I mean, I absolutely, freaking loved Roddy for his promos and his work and everything. But this was one of the few times where it's like it was just completely annoying. And I mean, anybody in that role would have been annoying. Roddy was just trying everything he could to put energy into it, which is more than I can say for the crowd. And I love Backlund and I love Bret. That match was not very good. Their match at Survivor Series 94 was leagues better, though that still was pretty divisive. I can't say that match was great. Their match on Superstars, I believe in July of 94, where Backlund snapped and turned heel, that was a much better match, even though it was shorter. This just went on forever, and it was like, since it was an I Quit match, Bret had Backlund in a submission, and Backlund ended up saying yes, but never ended up saying I quit. So, whatever. I mean, I Quit matches have ended with a yes before. Magnum TA and Tully Blanchard, and that, Starrcade 85 cage match is a perfect example. But it was a lot of nothing. It was not a very good match, and it's a real shame given how technically sound both these guys are. And how Backlund still had a number of years left. Like, I think Backlund got a Raw deal in his, second WWE run. And then also, in subsequent years, because the guy still had a bunch left. Now, I'm not saying the guy should have been wrestling after, maybe his brief Impact run in 2007. But still, at this point, he still had a lot left, and it just seemed like they kind of marginalized him. But, yeah, not a very good match at all. And then we go to number 11, the Hart Foundation versus the Bolsheviks at Mania 6. It was a squash match. It was like 20 seconds. You had the Soviet national anthem, the Russian national anthem, and then Bret and Jim ran to the ring, hit the heart attack really quick, 1, 2, 3. The reason I'm ranking it higher than this is at least it was quick, and squash matches at Mania are pretty nice in small doses. Not Bryan and Sheamus, but still, it was pretty nice here. The Bolsheviks weren't really much of a team. It was what it was. Number 10, the WrestleMania 2 Battle Royal, where Bret was actually one of the last two in the ring, and then Andre won. This was the famous one where you had a bunch of football players, and you had a bunch of people. It was in Chicago, so it was a bunch of Chicago Bears, and current and former Chicago Bears. It was fine. It was a fine match, and Bret did pretty well in Battle Royals. This isn't the last appearance that Bret's going to have in a Battle Royal, especially on this list. But it was what it was. Andre winning was the right call, but Bret surviving till the final two spoke highly. Apparently, Andre did like Bret. He liked actually working with him. So that's at least something, or at least according to Bret. I mean, if you want to believe everything Bret says, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, this Battle Royal, it was good for what it was. There were some other, good moments in there, but Bret surviving till the final two is why it's ranked this high on the list. And then, number 9, the Hart Foundation versus Greg Valentine and the Honky Tonk Man at Mania 5. I covered this in in my WrestleMania 5 Clash of Champions 6 retro review. That's on my old school wrestling, reviews list. So I'll be brief here, but it was just nice to see Honky Tonk get beat up and take the pin. Hart Foundation got the victory. Good stuff. And then we go to number 8. The WrestleMania 4 Battle Royal, where Bret survived till the final two and was last eliminated by Bad News Brown. And then Bret attacked Bad News Brown and destroyed the big old trophy and everything. That was pretty cool. It was just nice to see where this is starting to kind of begin the little, seeds being planted for Bret working as a singles guy. Even though him and Jim would team up still for 3 years after this, Bret would also work singles matches and work pretty well. And he was obviously primed to be the big breakout star of the group. Even though Jim was a hell of a worker or whatever, he was much better in tag teams. But Bret being in here, working with Bad News Brown, it was pretty cool. Good stuff. And I really did enjoy this one. It was a bright spot on an otherwise kind of lengthy, overdone WrestleMania 4 card. Number 7, the Hart Foundation versus the Nasty Boys of WrestleMania 7. I swear to God, this wasn't intentional. It was good. It was a good match. The Nasty Boys got the victory by using Jimmy Hart's devious methods to gain the tag titles, and it was the last match at a Mania for the Hart Foundation, which was a shame. But Bret was already primed for bigger and better things, and I believe Jim Neidhart moved to commentary. He moved to being kind of like a glorified enhancement talent and doing commentary and stuff like that. He would team with Owen soon after this as part of the new foundation, but it was a good match. One of the rare times I actually didn't mind a Nasty Boys match. I don't really care for the Nasty Boys. I think, quite frankly, they're one of the worst tag teams of all time, or at least, as far as a tag team that wasn't just thrown together, as far as mainstream tag teams, I never really cared for them. However, this was a pretty good match. And then we get to number 6, the Hart Foundation and Dangerous Danny Davis versus the Bulldogs and Tito Santana at WrestleMania 3. Mainly putting this on here because it was never dull seeing the Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs in the ring. Unfortunately, this was soon after Dynamite Kid's horrific back injury that would pretty much shorten his career. Not that the guy was necessarily the nicest guy in the world outside the wrestling business, so maybe it was karma for the dumb fuck. But that aside, as far as wrestling ability, this was good. It was supposed to be, I believe, a tag team title match, but they were worried about Dynamite's health, so they put 2 other guys in there, one on each side, to take the load off of Dynamite Kid. And, I mean, Dynamite, I think, only wrestled till 1990, only wrestled a few years after this, so, yeah, it probably would have been ranked higher had it just been the Hart Foundation and the Bulldogs, and had Dynamite been in full health, but, yeah, it certainly was a good match for what it was. Now we're going to get into the top 5. Now, the top 5 I've talked about here at length. Some of these matches I've talked about at length, so some of them might be a little bit shorter, but I got a reason why I ranked them like this. So let's go with first, at number 5, Bret versus Yokozuna at Mania 10. The second match for both men. Yoko had beaten Lex Luger earlier, he had retained the title over Lex Luger by, Mr. Perfect being a bit of a prickish referee and everything, and it being all messy because they realized, wait, Luger should not be champion because he's not very good. And they like Bret. Vince listening to the crowd. If only he'd do that more. But Bret also lost to his brother Owen in the opening match. Favorite opening match at a WrestleMania of all time. Cheap plug also for a playlist that I did, or, a list that I did earlier. And yeah, I may have just spoiled it, but you can figure out how I ranked all the rest. That being said, great match. Bret and Yoko really had great chemistry. It was much better than their Mania 9 match. And Bret getting the victory. You had Roddy Piper as a special guest referee. A time where him being the special guest referee, unlike a year later, actually served a purpose and was good. This was a really, really good match. Bret gained the victory, holding the championship. Savage and so many people, pointing and saying, this is our guy, this is our guy. Damn shame that was the last WrestleMania for Randy Savage also. But yeah, now to number 4. Bret versus Piper at WrestleMania 8. Terrific match for the Intercontinental title. Bloody. I mean, it was a blade job, but they passed it off as a hard way, which brilliant stuff. Flair couldn't do that so much because it was pretty obvious whenever Flair bladed. But still, Bret and Roddy just worked such a great match here with plenty of stiff shots, plenty of great wrestling, plenty of good storytelling. Piper and the Hart family having, some rich history and everything, knowing each other for so long. Would Roddy turn to his dubious, heel methods and everything, his devious heel methods, and beat him? Nope, he didn't do that. He ended up getting on the sleeper hold, and then Bret managed to get his feet on the rope, roll over, and 1, 2, 3. So he pinned Roddy. He won the Intercontinental title, and that's Bret's second reign with the title. And Roddy handed it off to him. It was probably Roddy's best match, at least of the 90s. I mean, at least in WWE. I know he didn't have a ton of matches, but I can't really think of any other matches he had in like 94, 96. His Goldust Piper match actually wasn't that bad, but this might have actually been Roddy's best WWF wrestling match. Or at least, up there. I mean, I don't know. You guys can tell me in the comments what you think. But this was a terrific match, in my opinion, for the Intercontinental title. Number 3. Bret versus Owen in Mania 10. What else can I say about this? Again, my favorite WrestleMania opening match of all time. Owen gained the victory. It was tremendous and shocking. It was so good. I've covered it before, so all I'm going to say is go watch this. It's a really terrific match. It really is. Two brothers just having a great battle, great wrestling. It was just tremendous. Please watch it. You won't regret it. Number 2, Bret versus Austin at Mania 13. So you can figure out what number 1 is. I mean, I don't think that should have been too hard to figure out from when you saw the title. This is where Bret made stars as much as he himself was a star. Now, not always. Sometimes, trying to make stars didn't necessarily work. This is where Austin was already on the ascent and everything, and Bret just did what he could to make a star out of Steve Austin and do the classic double turn and everything. And that visual of Austin being busted open and bleeding down his, blood streaming down his face as he was in the sharpshooter, but he would not give up. He tried to power out of it. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. And, Bret then passed out, and Ken Shamrock, special guest referee, was like, Steve, if you don't answer, I will stop the match. He stopped the match. Bret continued to beat on him, completing the double turn, and it was great stuff. And Austin stunned a couple referees, left the conquering hero, or the hero that would not give up and would eventually become the conquering hero. And it was great stuff. And Bret made Austin a star. Austin was on the ascent. Bret still had a championship, reign to come at SummerSlam 97. And then we get number 1, Bret versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 12. Come on, what else was it going to be? One of my favorite matches of all time. Yes, it's divisive. I get that some people don't like the fact it was a hour-long match at a WrestleMania. I liked it. I thought it was goddamn good. Everything from like no falls in the 60 minutes to 1 fall in the overtime. Just great stuff. Great wrestling. Great psychology. I loved it. And that's really all I have to say. So yeah, let me know in the comments where you would have ranked these. And like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritland. I will see you soon.